Genetic mutations and advances in technology are allowing us to become more and more like superheroes with each passing day. Today, we've got 5 fictional heroes that may exist in real life to help keep you all current and up to date. There's a lot to cover after all, and we plan on showing you as much as we can. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Batman. With everyone walking around these days declaring, "I am Batman," this one might be a little played out, but we're sticking by it. For starters, Batman doesn't have any superpowers and wasn't granted any kind of superhuman abilities. He's basically just a rich guy with a complex who plays with high-powered toys. Therefore, it's really not inconceivable that Batman could have a real-life copycat somewhere. If it hasn't happened yet, it's still possible that the right rich dude is out there, just waiting for his inheritance to kick in. The real problem here is the larger-than-life persona that Batman is able to maintain. He takes on some serious badasses and manages, for the most part, to keep his identity secret. If you've ever listened to a friend wail on about how 2 Tinder hookups ran into each other, you can appreciate that this might be a little harder than it looks. We're not about to run around cheating, but you get the picture. Maintaining a double life would be hard. That just leads into our next issue with Batman. He gets knocked around a lot. No person really seems to get the crap kicked out of him in more comics than Batman does. How then do you suppose he makes it to all those galas, openings, and black tie affairs after he literally gets beaten through the wall? We don't care what kind of armor you have, that's gonna hurt for a bit. Many healthcare professionals with a soft spot for comics and superheroes have tried to calculate the kind of person Bruce would be after sustaining all of his combined injuries in real life. And the answer is, he'd absolutely be a vegetable. Probably not a very good-looking vegetable either. We're thinking a pickle that spent too much time in the sun. Not a good thing. So being able to take a beating would be a must, or the real-life Batman would have to be an absolute pro at never getting hit. Chances are slim, but you never know. Finally, and most importantly for the comic book hero, is that Batman doesn't kill the people he takes on while they're sure as hell trying to take him down for good for the most part. To be able to subdue that many perps and bad guys without breaking one skull, even by accident, is just not gonna happen, no matter how well you dance around the competition. Still, it's fun to consider, and our current tech isn't too far away from some ridiculously wealthy playboy to at least get their hands dirty and come out on top once in a while. If they spent enough time building their skills, they could even make it look good more often than not, and, well, that would be awesome. Number 4. Daredevil. We all think Daredevil is pretty badass, even if he's not at the top of our superhero lists. He's still somewhat unknown, and his abilities require a little more finesse to really appreciate properly. You might be interested to know then that this fictional hero's superpower is completely attainable by anyone with a lot of time and some impressive willpower. While it's possible to replicate, Daredevil's echolocation is not for the faint of heart, and decades of practice might not ever be enough to properly hone your senses. This might sound crazy, because it is. It's also completely factual and has been backed up by multiple studies. One such individual, Juan Ruiz, helped to popularize this phenomenon in the first season of the TV show Stan Lee's Superhumans, which features plenty of people with real-life superpowers. Juan was able to navigate obstacles on a street while riding a bicycle under intense scrutiny, and also navigated his way into a cave before declaring its dimensions to examiners. They were blown away by this ability and declared it scientifically valid. The real pioneer of this ability, however, is Daniel Kish, who helped to develop a more sophisticated form of echolocation. He works with blind children and uses his own technique called flash sonar, which involves emitting a series of clicks with your tongue. His technique has allowed many blind children and adults to navigate the world around them relatively confidently without the use of aids. That's just nuts, and we can't believe that people are capable of this. Sight and hearing are actually very closely related, which is what makes this possible. Humans are able to train their minds, under the right conditions, to pick up and measure reflected waves of energy. Put in layman's terms, they use echolocation just like a bat or dolphin, although the process isn't quite that refined in humans. There are also countless other examples of blind children and adults teaching themselves echolocation independently of outside input, which means this is something that can be learned and applied by just about anyone. Even people who've not been blind themselves have been able to put this to the test and navigate obstacles when they prepare and train long enough. This is groundbreaking, even though it's been known about for quite some time now. With modern techniques, we can monitor how people's brains react when they apply these processes and further our understanding of how the brain works. As it is, we don't know much, so every little bit helps. While none of these blind echolocators are likely to be as slick as Daredevil, the fact remains that his power isn't quite so superhuman after all and just dialed up a few notches more than the rest of us. Number 3. Aquaman. So, being able to breathe underwater is as yet impossible for humans. There are, however, new discoveries that suggest that it's not entirely out of our reach in one way or another. If you watched the show Scorpion, a fictional account of a real-life genius who was pretty kick-ass, you may have seen an episode in which a kid gets trapped in an underwater cave with the tide quickly rising. In order to get him out, our hero injects something from a syringe into the kid's arm, which oxygenates his blood and allows him to breathe without, well, breathing. It's pretty shaky science to be using in that kind of scene, but this has actually been used to save lives before. Injecting oxygen straight into the bloodstream is a little trickier than Scorpion makes it out to be, and the science is pretty mind-blowing. At the end of the day, they really do inject oxygen microparticles directly into veins and can use that to buy a fair amount of time with no air in your lungs. Rabbits were paralyzed and given an injection of this stuff during a pretty gruesome sounding trial. Regardless of what you think about bunny feelings, the rabbits survived without functioning lungs for 15 minutes. That's a huge medical breakthrough, to be sure. To make this even more plausible, another group of scientists has also recently developed a potential way to store and release large amounts of oxygen in a relatively controlled manner by using a special formulation of crystals. Developed in Denmark in 2014, these crystals were manufactured from cobalt and are extremely efficient at capturing large amounts of the life-giving gas. If either of these methods are adapted for wide-scale commercial sale, we could be looking at the dawn of the mermaids and Aquaman, and not a moment too soon with all the doom and gloom in the news. We might even see advances that allow us to repel or attract certain sea creatures. Shark repelling devices are already being marketed in early forms after all. Imagine being able to repel sharks while simultaneously attracting a ring of dolphins to protect you. While that's ridiculous and the tech is still a little way off, this one's still technically possible. To further highlight this, we should point out that pro freedivers can swim unaided to depths of 700 feet and hold their breath for upwards of 10 minutes. With all the pressure and other forces working against them, that's definitely worthy of an Aquaman shoutout. Number 2. Magneto. So, while he can't quite harness the same amount of power as Magneto, we found another superhuman who's the perfect representation of Magneto here in real life. This field has had more than its fair share of charlatans and phonies out to make a quick buck, but Miroslav Magola is the real deal as far as anyone can tell. It's worth mentioning here that many of the fakers who were found out in the past were just really greasy people when it came right down to it. And that's not a moral judgment. Their skin was actually able to attract just about any material, not just metal, and it was basically a sign that they should probably shower more often instead of running around while asking people to touch them with all sorts of household objects. Furthermore, Miroslav takes what he does incredibly seriously and has gone as far as to publicly denounce fellow magnetic men who aren't actually endowed with a special ability. We are impressed by what he can do, but are still on the fence about whether this is really something we should be looking into or whether it's all just hocus pocus. The critics in us make us skeptical of a lot, and this is one that we'd love to see more evidence for before we wholeheartedly support it. With people now surgically inserting objects and electronics under their skin, this could be right around the corner, although embedding magnets in your body isn't really a superpower. As of yet, no examiner has been able to convincingly prove this phenomenon is 100% above board, with many claiming that without measurable magnetic fields to work with, it's probably some kind of a trick. It goes without saying that no researcher has been able to detect said fields so far, but we're still holding out hope that Miroslav can prove the naysayers wrong beyond the shadow of a doubt. According to his Google page, he's still doing everything he can to show the world that he's the real deal and worthy of the superhero moniker. Number 1. Wolverine. We thought this had to be a fake story, but it seems that Yale University is taking it pretty seriously, which certainly piqued our interest. They believe that their discovery could mean the end of osteoporosis, which would be incredible news for anyone who plans on making it to old age. The The deterioration of bones is a real issue, and we also really wouldn't mind having unbreakable bones. An unnamed Connecticut family was found by scientists to have what they described as abnormally high bone density due to a freak genetic mutation. This basically means that many of them and their extended families could very well be a new step in evolution that ultimately leads to stronger people in general. Furthermore, if researchers can find out exactly what caused the mutation and how it caused their bones to grow differently than the rest of us, they can unlock the secrets behind anti-osteoporosis medications as well as making us all better boned. This all began about 15 years ago and we haven't heard much since, so we're really excited to hear what comes out of this. Out of 20 of the family members tested, only 9 showed regular bone density, making this mutation surprisingly dominant. We were especially interested by the fact that they've never suffered bone fractures, and that the researchers who gave them the once-over said that the subjects reminded them of the hero from Unbreakable, which, as well as Wolverine, is an apt description. While these people weren't surgically altered, we still have visions of them being serious contenders. They're also, unfortunately, unable to heal like superhumans, so that's a bit of a bummer. Hope you enjoyed the video, folks. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button before you head out if you're new. That's all you have to do. Come on, just click it. I know you want to. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. I heard it gives you superpowers in the future or something. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.